Hi there, welcome to the Perfume Experience. My name is Rodney and we are back again today with another video. There have been plenty of requests for this particular line and I'm talking about the Yasmin Fragrances Luxe line, and let's get started. So first of all, let me clear the air about the samples. So how did I get the samples and why samples are not available? So when I spoke to Shoaib about this particular problem, why samples are not available, so one of the things that he said was that he had 500 ml of each of the fragrances. That means he had a cut stock of 10 bottles, because of which he was not able to break a particular bottle to make it into samples. So that was the primary reason why samples were not available for everybody to buy, or for him to give out. Now, I've been pestering him for samples from the time he announced this particular line, and he was actually not able to give me on the first line of purchases that he released. There were no samples available. On the second, there were no samples available. Third, when I had to place an order for my own line of vials that I needed for comparison tests, I forced him again asking for samples, and that's when he actually came back after a couple of days and said that okay, let me see what I can do. And then he said okay, I'll be able to give you some from my private collection, the ones that he had for himself. So I got to choose only 5 fragrances, and that to only 2 ml, right? So out of which I've kind of chosen these 5 fragrances, and that's how I was able to get these samples, and these have come free to me. He has basically given out from his own private collection, and that is about the samples. I wanted to clear this because I didn't want this to lead to any kind of an ambiguous situation in the future, right? So now that we have cleared the air about the fragrances and the samples, let's go and talk about the fragrances in particular. So what exactly is the Luxe line? And so these are the kind of questions that you would have in your mind, especially when a house releases a new line of fragrances and their existing line is also pretty good, right? So if you look at the Luxe line and if you try to understand what is the primary difference between this and the existing line, that is where you got to look at what makes this fragrance unique, or what makes this fragrance a good product, right? So that is one question. So what is the difference? And second, what are you actually going to get for the money that you spend? Because this is about 1300 rupees for most 50 mls, and I think going all the way up to 1500. And then you also have his regular line, which is basically starting at about 750, 850, that kind of range for 50 ml, right? Now, when you look at that angle, and when you look at these fragrances, which are almost twice the price, so what is it that you get? And we kind of need to look at it from that angle to try and understand what is the Luxe line all about. So the Luxe line is primarily about, and I think everything about that is towards scent profile, okay? Now, the scent profile on this particular fragrance is top notch, so to say. So that is the least that I can say, because there are also niche houses definitely, and you can kind of, we'll talk about each of these fragrances, but the primary element, what differentiates this versus the other house line that they have, which is the regular line, is the scent profile. And when I say scent profile, what do I mean? I mean the lightness of the fragrance, the fixative that they've used, the lasting, all of that. Those are the elements that this particular fragrance really talks about, and that's where the Luxe line separates itself from the regular line that they have. So primary element is the scent profile, the lightness, the airiness, and the quality of ingredients used is what is going to differentiate this particular line from the regular line. Now that we have cleared that, let's actually look at each of the fragrances and understand their scent profiles. So the first fragrance that we're going to talk about is called Santal Noir, and this is from the house of BYREDO's SELLIER, okay? Now, if you like this particular fragrance, or the scent profile of this particular fragrance is got leather, it's got tobacco leaf, it's got cashmere man, it's got black tea, and it's got oak moss and birch, okay? So this is a nice fragrance which has got notes of light fruitiness, light floral notes, because probably of the birch and oak moss brings up that flower notes. It's got that note of tea, and it's got tobacco as well, but the leather note is very, very mild and very beautiful. Now if you like, or if you want to explore leather for the first time and you want to get a fragrance which is inoffensive, which is well accepted around you and has got a nice aura around you, this is a good fragrance to go for. So this was basically Saddle Noir, and this is a very beautiful fragrance as such. It's very light, it's very airy, it's got a very nice scent profile, and it lasts. Okay, so the one of those things about this particular line of fragrances, at least in most cases, is the lasting is good. You easily get about 6 to 8 hours of lasting, and apparel can last 14 to 16 hours easily. It can go much longer than that, but on skin I was easily able to get about 6 to 8 hours on most of these fragrances. So if you like a fragrance which has got light hints of florals, light hints of light fruitiness, okay, and that oak moss and that birch, and right at the top you have that black tea, so you get that little bit of no tartness, but then you get that light aromatic kind of a fragrance along with leather and tobacco leaf. So you have that slight bitterness, you have that little bit of an animalic note as well. But on the whole, this is a very lovely scent, and especially I would recommend it for people who want to try leather for the first time. You can definitely consider Saddle Noir, an alt of BYREDO's SELLIER. This is a beautiful fragrance to try. The next one on the list is called Santal Boom. Now this is inspired from Tom Ford's Santal Blush. Okay, now this has got notes of, let's say, spices like cinnamon, caraway seeds, it's got sandalwood, it's got a lot of other things as well, yang, jasmine and all of that. And in my opinion, it's also got oud also. Okay, so the oud is very, very mild in this. In my opinion, this is one of the nicest scents, okay, like the jasmine, the yang and the caraway seeds, the cinnamon and the sandalwood. Amazing scent, very good, beautiful, very, very nice scent profile, lovely scent profile, so to say. There's a catch: the performance. Okay, this is the weakest scent as such. Now why I say performance is because this is a Tom Ford fragrance, and I think the original also is like that, because it doesn't really go all out and loud and all of that. It's a very mild fragrance, it's a very divine kind of a fragrance. I would say this is especially good if you want to wear something in the night, you want to be close with your partner and that kind of a scent profile, then I think this works really, really well. It's a nice scent, and the lasting is about, I would say, about 3 to 4 hours roughly, because it's, first of all, it's light, so as the time passes it kind of becomes more milder and milder. Now I've been able to try all of these fragrances at least 3 times, so I've done 3 different times at all of them. So I've worn it multiple times and I've felt the same thing, that it doesn't pump up, unlike the other fragrances. While this is a very good scent profile, the lasting is a little bit weak on this. The scent profile itself is very nice. It opens on that light musky, it's got that aromatic, it's got that light sweet element to it, it's got that powderiness to it, all of that. Very nice scent profile, good smelling fragrance. It's got that jasmine and rose gives that nice light flowery floral element to it, and then those spices and especially cinnamon with that sandalwood kind of blends really well. Everything good. Performance is a little low. This is the lowest performing fragrance in this entire list that I would say. But if you want to try something nice, something smelling very good, especially for night wear, especially if you are somebody who's into meditation and prayer and all of that, and you want to have a nice sandalwood kind of a fragrance for you should definitely try this. This is Santal Boom, an alt of Tom Ford's Santal Blush. Okay, so this is that. So the next one on this list is called Sicillia, and this is basically an alt of Memo's Sicilian leather. Okay, so now this particular fragrance is very unique, and this is for the brave hearts. The reason why I say this is because of the notes. This has got leather, it's got obviously that's from the name. You also have a lot of tart elements, like you have lemon, you have bergamot, you have a bitter orange, and then you have a little bit of cardamom. Then in terms of patchouli in the base, you have gaiac wood, you have akigala wood, and fragrantic also talks about tomato leaf also. Now because of all of those tartness, what really happens on this particular fragrance is that it opens with a very tart, sharp opening. Okay, and something this is not a compliment getter. Okay, so this is something, if you love leather fragrances and you want to explore more onto those lines, that is when you have to get this particular fragrance. Now because of the tart, of all of these fruits, like the bitter orange and lemon and bergamot and tomato leaf as well, and then leather. It's a more animalic, powdery, it's musky, ambery, that kind of a fragrance, but that element of tartness is right at the top, and that keeps lingering throughout the day. So if you've smelled a tomato leaf up close, it's got a bit of that sourness of tomato, but then it cuts across things, right? And that's the kind of cut that you get on this particular scent profile. So it's a good leather fragrance, but it's not for everybody. It is definitely for somebody who really wants to, who really loves leather fragrances, and you're willing to try any one of them. Then you can definitely try this. This has got good lasting. Okay, so the fragrance really lasts at least 7 hours easy on you, and it's got a projection as well. But the element that really is something that you have to get used to is that tartness. So if you're okay with that, and I think then this is a good fragrance. In the dry down also, you kind of get that leather note, that animalic leather note is there, plus that tartness continues to be there. So the tartness is not something that kind of is there only for the few minutes and then goes away. It is throughout. So that's why I say that this is for somebody who wants to be very brave with your fragrance. This is something that is very unique that you want to try. Then yes, you should definitely try this. I do like the African leather from the Memo House. That has got more spices to it, and cardamom, it's got coriander and all of that, so it opens in a little different way, but this is totally different. And so this is something that you can definitely try if you want to explore a very unique or a very different kind of a leather fragrance. So this is Sicillia, which is an alt of Memo's Sicilian leather. So the next one on this particular list is called Oppal Brew, and this is an alt of Boadicea the Victorious Kawa. Okay, now this is a very nice fragrance that I liked. I liked this a lot. Fortunately, I also have a OG decant of this, so I kind of tried this on that as well. So let's get another spray. Yeah, there you go. Right. Now, this particular fragrance has got some very different notes. It's got bay leaf, it's got eucalyptus, it's got clove, it's got cardamom, it's got Bulgarian rose, it's got Cambodian oud, and some elements like that, right? So this particular and coffee, yes, most importantly, coffee. Now, this particular fragrance, the moment it opens up, it's got a very sharp opening, and that sharpness is from the clove and cardamom together. Now, when you think about cardamom, you might be thinking of Usoloro, Lanudilum, for example. But that's not the kind of cardamom we are talking here, or nor is Latafa Kaid kind of a cardamom. This is a cardamom note like if you were to bite an ilachi, okay, or cardamom, while eating or something. When you bite that, you get that sharp, huge blast of cardamom flavor, and some people get repelled by it, some people like it. That is the kind of cardamom note that it opens with. So very strongly it opens with that cardamom note, and then it continues, right? So then you have these things like a Bulgarian rose, and you have the other elements that are there, add a lot of volume to this particular fragrance, especially the coffee note and all of that. And the fragrance starts to open up, okay? And when it opens up, it really becomes this lovely, wonderful fragrance that builds a lovely aura around you, a very unique, amazing fragrance to try. And as it keeps going down, that cardamom note starts to go down, and the clove also keeps coming up, but the coffee element keeps revolving around you, and you build this beautiful, sweet, floral, ambery, and let's say some hints of coffee, some hints of spicy, aromatic, musky kind of a fragrance. And of course, it's got oud, so it's got a very mild element of oud at the bottom. Very beautiful fragrance, very complicated fragrance, I would say. And I really didn't think Kawa is this kind of a fragrance. And I had the OG decant for quite some time, and I was actually looking for an alt if there was one of this particular fragrance, and luckily this came through. Now, when I compare to that, one of the things that I can clearly say is the opening is absolute same. The cardamom note here and in the alt is the same. What really changes is in the dry down. The dry down is more gentler, is more velvety on the OG. Here it is more leaning towards cardamom and in the coffee note for a longer time. That is the major difference between the two. But if I were to say how close is it to the OG, I would say in the 90s category it's close. But what really differentiates is the element of that scent profile, the lightness. Okay, now if you noticed when I sprayed, in fact when I sprayed it now, it kind of fell on my finger, and that's why I did a second spray. You don't really get a lot of residue on your finger or in your hands on this particular fragrance. Though the concentration level is high, that lightness is very well done. The blend is really beautiful. So that way, this particular fragrance was a pure surprise, and I really enjoyed wearing this a lot of the times. And this is a very good fragrance to try in case if you haven't tried any of the Bodacia Victorious line. You can definitely try this. I tried another one called Blue Sapphire from another house, and that's also another phenomenal fragrance that I'll talk to you in another review. But if you like, or if you want to explore a fragrance which has got coffee, it's got clove, it's got cardamom, all of that, then I think you should definitely give this a try. It's a fantastic fragrance, and the reviews for this particular fragrance are also pretty good from the people who have bought this one, right? And they easily talk to you about 8-9 hours of lasting and 12 to 14 hours of an apparel, and that's really true. The performance is fantastic on this one, and this projects also, so you easily get about 3 feet of projection on this particular one. But even though it's that not that masculine, all out kind of a fragrance, it's basically a fragrance which is very gentle, it's very complicated, it's got a velvety feel to it, it's got that coffee notes, but then you will love this particular scent profile. It's a very complicated, beautiful fragrance to have. It's a unisex fragrance, so your partner also can definitely try this on. So this is Oppal Brew from the house of Yasmin Fragrances. This is an alt of Bodacia's The Victorious Kawa. All right, so the last one, and let's save the best for the last, right? So the last one is called Prince Charming, or this, in other words, is an alt of Parfums de Marly's Carlisle. Okay, now this is a fantastic fragrance. I mean, wow, was I surprised with this particular one? Yes, fantastic. So this has got notes of, it's got rose, it's got patchouli, it's got tonka beans, it's got nutmeg, and yeah, so those are the top elements. It's got green apple. Now, the thing is, when you think about tonka beans, when you think about nutmeg, and when you think about apple, you're trying to figure out how is this fragrance going to smell like, okay? Now, this is a slightly sweet, woody, aromatic, that kind of a fragrance. Light hints of floral notes, but then it's got that light ambriness to it. It's got that powderiness to it. It will remind you a little bit of Zerge of Naxos, but I think this is a fantastic fragrance. If you like fragrances like Leighton and all of that, you should definitely get this one. This is superb, okay? Now, this lasts like crazy, okay? This will give you 8-10 hours of performance, and this will project 3-4 feet, and this will be on you. If you wear an apparel, it is going to be with you for 14-16 hours. It is going to be around you the whole day. You will get whiffs of this particular fragrance, and I absolutely loved this particular one. And I'm going to give you a secret. For some testing, I did try Baccarat Rouge that day. So I had a few sprays of Baccarat Rouge, and then I had a few sprays of this. The layering, my God, is phenomenal. This, along with Baccarat Rouge, goes fantastic. Baccarat Rouge has got oak moss, saffron, and all of that. And that light sugar candy coat, along with this green apple, nutmeg, tonka beans. It's a fantastic combination. You should try it. But that aside, what a lovely fragrance, and the quality. See, this is what I was talking about when we describe, or we were trying to understand what is the Luxe line all about. And I told you the primary element of this particular fragrance or the line is the scent profile, and the scent profile is fantastic. The note changes, right? Generally, you get fragrances, you see those top note, mid note, and base note, but then that change doesn't happen. You will almost find it linear, but that's not the case with any of these 5 fragrances. They all change at some point of time. The opening is there, then the dry down happens, then you get that vanilla vibe, you get the powdery vibe. Fantastic particular fragrance, at least this one. So there are in total, I think Shoaib said there are 24 or 25 fragrances in this line of Luxe line, like Viking and so many more. But I think I was able to only try 5, and in that I can safely say there have been 2 which are like right at the top for me. One was Oppal Brew, and the other is definitely Prince Charming. I also like Santal Boom a lot, but like I said, the performance is a little lighter. But aside to that, I think this Prince Charming, which is Parfums de Marly's Carlisle, is a fabulous fragrance to try if you want a rich, complex, aromatic, ambery kind of a fragrance that will make you feel like you're standing apart in a crowd. You can definitely try this particular fragrance. Amazing fragrance, nice dry down, beautiful scent profile all across you. very masculine, very elegant. If you're wearing a suit or you're going for a celebration, this is the kind of a fragrance that you want to have on you. Fantastic particular fragrance. This is Prince Charming from the house of Yasmin Fragrances and alt of Parfums de Marly, CARLISLE. So to summarize, so what's the Luxe line? So the Luxe line is basically a line of fragrances where I think the scent profile does the talking. It's fantastic in terms of their quality of ingredients, the fixatives and all of that. So the question is, are you going to compare them with other premium houses? Ideally you would, but then I think they're not there yet. So that is something that, you know, Shoaib Bhai will work because, you know, there are other lines of houses that have got premium fragrances, but they also charge a premium for it. So at this particular price point, at about 1300 to 1500 bracket, I think you're getting a fantastic deal for 50 ml of these fragrances, especially now with the new packaging and all of that. So pretty good value for money, I can definitely tell you that. At least in terms of niche houses that you want to explore, some complicated fragrance that you want to explore from your typical line of fragrances generally that you do, which is your Creed, Aventus and all of that. If you want to try something like Erolfa, Viking, Homage fragrances, all of that, I think then you can definitely consider this. I think Louis Vuitton's Imagination is one of them. So if you want to try niche houses and then you want to get a good value for money fragrance, especially in terms of scent profile, performance, like I said, some have got light, but I think the scent profile overall, I think for all of them have been really well captured and good value that they've been trying to get at this particular price point. So that was my thought, and I'm really grateful to Shoaib for actually sending out or making this sample possible, because I know that there are a lot of people who want to try these kind of fragrances, but then you're not too sure, you don't want to do a blind buy and, you know, go and get it just like that. So from that point of view, I think it reaches a wider aspect of people to at least these small vials will help a few people decide should they go for it or should they not go for it, you know, that kind of thing. So I really thank Shoaib for giving me these samples from his collection, and thank you so much. So in the next few days, I'm going to bring more reviews from the house of Rohaniyat. I have Al Mahams that I want to try and do some more. I have Meenakshi Talwar's fragrances coming up, and maybe a big surprise as well. So maybe let's see, you know, there are some things that are happening. So I really want to bring out some new fragrances out to try. So on that note, if you like the content that I bring, please like and subscribe. My name is Rodney. Have a fantastic evening. Take care. Bye now.